All right, everybody, I have my reactions to the 12-team playoff field being set. Miami's in, Alabama's in, Notre Dame is the odd man out. The committee got it right. You can't penalize Alabama by leaving them out in favor of both Miami and Notre Dame, with them earning the right to play in their conference championship game as the 1 seed, while Notre Dame and Miami be the beneficiaries of not playing in the conference championship game, relaxing with their feet kicked up at home, benefiting from Alabama playing in the 13th game. Now, Miami being in over Notre Dame makes a lot of sense, because although Miami did have worse losses than what Notre Dame had, Miami had enough time to course correct and make up for the losses that they had to Louisville and SMU. And you have to favor in head-to-head. If Miami would have lost those games later on during the season, Notre Dame would have a more valid argument for being in. And Notre Dame not being in the conference this year hurt them getting into the playoffs, because their schedule wasn't tough enough for them to convince the committee that they were a deserving entrance in the playoffs over an Alabama team that played a top 10 schedule, over a Miami squad that beat them head to head. And I got into an argument with a homie of mine who tried to say that Alabama played a cupcake schedule. And yes, he is a casual. Paris, if you're listening to this, I apologize, but that was a casual take. There's no such thing as a cupcake schedule in the SEC. Alabama at one point beat 4 straight ranked teams consecutively. And they also have the best win in the country, going on the road and beating Georgia in Athens, which, by the way, was Georgia's first home loss in over half a decade. You cannot decentivize making it to your conference championship game, no matter how big the margin of defeat is. If you get to the SEC championship game, win or lose, you're in the college football playoffs. Well, what about BYU, who made it to the Big 12 championship game and lost to Texas Tech? If BYU would have beaten Texas Tech in the regular season and lost them in the Big 12 championship game, they would have had a stronger argument for getting into the playoffs. But you can't get blown out by the same team twice and try to argue that you deserve to be a lock just because you were the runner-up in the Big 12. Playing in the SEC and playing in the Big 12 is not the same thing. You are making two separate arguments when Alabama had the tougher strength of schedule and they also played in the tougher conference. If BYU wants to have stronger arguments in the near future why they should get in over teams in stronger conferences than them, they need to schedule a better out-of-conference schedule. Same thing goes if you're playing in an ACC. Miami was able to get in off the fact that they played Notre Dame in the out-of-conference, and that is something that you have to respect. If you beat a top 10, top 12 team in the out of conference, even if you're playing in the ACC or the Big 12, that's a big enough win that it boosts your resume to help you overcome playing in a weak conference. And it's not just a BYU issue. Any team that plays in the SEC or the ACC, or the Big 12, they have to play a tough out of conference schedule to make up for the lack of respect that both of those conferences get. Crying won't get BYU into the playoffs. You have to play a stronger out-of-conference schedule to have a stronger argument for why you deserve to be in. Now, the Big Ten championship, it was a bona fide championship exhibition game because nothing really changed. All you did was just swap the seeding. You move Indiana to 1 and Ohio State falls to 2. Ohio State should have been penalized a lot more for losing to Indiana. They should at least be behind Georgia. And you can say I'm being petty for arguing about how the top 4 seeding should be ordered, but the seeding matters because if Alabama beats Oklahoma in the first round, they get to play Indiana. And if Ohio State ends up having to play Miami or Texas A&M, you like their chances to win those games. Meanwhile, Georgia is going to have to play Ole Miss. So either way, depending on how the first round matchups go, how the seeding is for the top 4 teams could determine who gets the more advantageous matchup to get into the Final Four. Now, we can all agree that 2 G5 teams being in the playoffs this year is downright outrageous. But we got in this position because we wanted to give out participation spots. We felt like the G5 had to be included due to the situation with UCF in the past, 2011 Boise State. You only get a G5 team that's good enough to compete with some of the best Power 4 teams in college football every once in a blue moon. You don't find 2020 Cincinnati every single year. You don't find 2011 Boise State or 2018 UCF every season. And it's really the ACC's fault that they had a 5-loss conference champion win their conference championship. And if we would have had Miami in the ACC championship and they would have won it, then you wouldn't have had 2 group of 5 teams in this thing. And I never was a big fan of giving an automatic berth to a G5 champion, because only once in a while do you have a G5 team that truly can have a strong argument for being included in the 12-field playoff. And if the playoffs are truly about crowning a national champion with the 12 best teams in it, then you can't include the G5, because we don't have a G5 team that was worthy of being considered a top 12 team in the sport this year. Boise State, you could have made a fair argument that they deserve to be in. Now, they didn't deserve a first round bye, but they did have a close loss against Oregon. And margin of losses is something that the committee takes into account. But since Tulane beat Duke, okay, the ACC champion, I'll accept them getting in. But James Madison, though, they didn't play the same level of schedule as what Tulane did. And you end up still in the playoff spot from Notre Dame, Vandy, or Texas, who could have took that spot if it wasn't due to Duke winning the ACC championship. Overall, I have no issues with the playoff rankings this year. I felt all throughout this year the playoff rankings were pretty good, even though the explanation by the committee I disagreed with, and they course corrected in the end by putting in Miami over Notre Dame, with Miami having a head-to-head win over them. And I know a bunch of you Notre Dame fans are upset right now. I understand. Nobody wants to be left out of the playoffs. And I do love you guys. But in the end, the games on the field have to matter. And Miami was able to have enough time to make up for the unranked losses that they took to Louisville and SMU, which is why they're in the college football playoffs this year. Unfortunately, Notre Dame not being in the conference hurt them as far as them getting into the CFP this year. If they were in the ACC, you easily would have won that conference and you would have had an automatic spot in the dance this year. Now, I created my college football bracket group. Any of you guys that are creating a college football playoff bracket, the link will be down in the description down below so you can submit your bracket in my group. And make sure that you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications. If you live, eat, breathe, and die football, we're talking college football, NFL, 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. Make sure that you get your football fix in. Check us out on Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. JT Sports is available. And I will see you guys shortly with more content.